Imagine being so obsessed with someone that you'd rather see them dead than let them go. That's exactly what happened to Prince Leopold Clement of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. He was a royal, wealthy, and had his whole future ahead of him until he crossed paths with Camilla Rybicka. She was beautiful, passionate, and dangerously jealous. When Leopold tried to end their affair, she didn't beg or cry. She grabbed a bottle of sulfuric acid and made sure he'd never leave her without scars. What followed was a shocking slow-motion tragedy. The acid melted his face, disfiguring him beyond recognition. He didn't die right away. He suffered for 6 long months, trapped in a living nightmare. The scandal shocked European high society, but the royal family tried to bury the truth. Was this a crime of passion, a desperate act of revenge, or was Camilla just a woman scorned, willing to destroy the man who dared reject her? Hello everyone, my name is Aurora. Welcome to my basement where everyone and everything is work in progress just like me. I'm today having a very special guest. You will probably see him. His name is Max. He's my dear baby, and he always wants to sit with me when I'm here. So I said, yeah, let's try. Thank you for joining me. Grab a drink, relax, and let's deep dive into our story tonight. Prince Leopold Clement of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha was born into a world of unimaginable privilege. As a member of one of Europe's most powerful royal families, he had wealth, status, and a future that seemed set in stone. His family had ties to the Habsburgs, ruling over vast territories and influencing European politics. He was raised in opulence, surrounded by lavish palaces, grand balls, and the strict expectations of aristocratic life. Royals like him were expected to marry well, strengthen alliances, and uphold the family's honor. But despite the luxury, Leopold's life wasn't as easy as it seemed. He was restless, drawn to excitement, and eager to live outside the rigid constraints of royalty. Vienna in the early 1900s was a city of contrasts. It was a place of glittering high society, where the elite indulged in extravagant lifestyles, but also one of deep social divides, where scandal lurked behind gilded doors. Affairs were common among the aristocracy, but they were meant to be discreet, never threatening a noble's reputation. Leopold, however, was different. He was known for his reckless romances and his attraction to women, considered unsuitable by royal standards. One of them was Camilla Rybicka, a woman outside of his class but captivating enough to holding his attention. For a while, she was his secret escape from the pressures of royal duty until their love turned into a deadly obsession. Who was Leopold, you might ask? Leopold grew up surrounded by immense wealth and privilege, far beyond what most people could imagine. His family's fortune, largely inherited from the Kohari line, was one of the largest in Europe at the time. Adjusted for today's value, their estates, investments, and vast land holdings would be worth billions. He spent his childhood in grand palaces where servants catered to his every need, and luxury was the norm. Education was strict for a prince of his standing. He was taught multiple languages, military strategy, politics, and the refined arts of aristocratic etiquette. Like many young nobles, he was expected to serve in the military, reinforcing his family's connection to the Habsburg Empire. Despite this rigid upbringing, Leopold wasn't as disciplined as his royal relatives might have hoped. He wasn't content with just following orders and upholding tradition. While he fulfilled his military duties, there were whispers that he was more interested in Vienna's social scene than in preparing for a grand future. I'm not surprised. The Austrian capital was a hotspot for music, intellectual debates, and extravagant parties, and Leopold was drawn to it all. He wasn't the picture-perfect nobleman. He was charming but restless, wealthy but restless. He had everything a man could want, but in the end, that wasn't enough to protect him from the deadly consequences of his own choices. Prince Leopold Clement was born on July 19, 1878, into one of Europe's most influential noble families. As the eldest son of Prince Auguste of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha and Princess Clementine of Orléans, he was expected to marry well and secure a union that would benefit his dynasty. Despite these expectations, Leopold never officially married. There were talks of him possibly wedding Archduchess Maria Dorothea of Austria, but the match never materialized. Whether due to his personal reluctance or political reasons, he remained a bachelor, something unusual for a man of his status. But that didn't mean he lived without romance. Before Camilla Rybicka entered the picture, Leopold had a string of affairs with women considered unsuitable by royal standards. He was known for his love of nightlife, frequenting Vienna's grand cafes and exclusive clubs where aristocrats and wealthy elites mingled with artists, performers, and courtesans. Some reports suggest he had relationship with actresses and dancers, women who lived outside the rigid rules of nobility. While such affairs weren't uncommon for high-born men, they were expected to remain discreet. Leopold, however, didn't always play by those rules. His taste for passion and excitement led him into dangerous territory, and when he became involved with Camilla Rybicka, his reckless life took a deadly turn. Leopold's life wasn't just about royal duties. He had a taste for excitement, and that often led him into scandal. He spent much of his time in Vienna, a city known for its grandeur but also its temptations. The late 1800s and early 1900s were a golden age for Europe's aristocrats, and Leopold was no exception. He was a regular at lavish parties and secretive clubs, where the wealthy mingled with all persons that lived outside the norms. His reputation wasn't exactly spotless. Whispers of gambling, affairs, and reckless spending followed him. His family tolerated it, hoping he would eventually settle down with an appropriate bride. But Leopold wasn't interested in playing by their family rules. At some point during his wild social life, he met Camilla Rybicka. There isn't much official record of her background, but she wasn't part of high society. That is normal. Some say she was a courtesan or an aspiring socialite, someone who used her beauty and charm to get close to wealthy men. Leopold was drawn to her, as he often was with women who lived outside the strict royal world. The relationship was passionate, intense, and full of drama. Camilla wasn't just another fling, she became obsessed with him, and soon things turned dark. Unlike other women in his past, Camilla didn't accept the idea of being discarded. As time passed, Leopold began to pull away, possibly under pressure from his family. We don't really know. He likely saw the affair as something temporary, a thrill rather than a lifelong commitment. But for Camilla, it was something more. She refused to be cast outside from the others. She wanted him to stay with her, and when it became clear that he wouldn't, her obsession took a terrifying turn. In a moment of fury, she threw sulfuric acid on his face, a violent act of revenge that would leave him horribly disfigured and in agony for months. What had started as a passionate romance had turned into a nightmare, one that Leopold would never escape. Camilla Rybicka remains a shadowy figure in history with little concrete information about her origins. She wasn't born into nobility, but she managed to navigate Vienna's elite social circles, likely using her charm and beauty to attract wealthy lovers. Some accounts suggest she was a courtesan, while others describe her as an ambitious socialite. In an era where women had few options for independence, relationships with powerful men could be a path to security and status. For Camilla, being with Prince Leopold Clement wasn't just about love, it was about survival in a world where women like her could be easily discarded. What's clear is that she was deeply obsessed with Leopold. Unlike his other lovers, Camilla didn't accept being just another passing affair. She wanted more, whether that meant marriage, wealth, or simply control over him. When she sensed Leopold pulling away, she didn't react with sadness or resignation. Instead, her emotions spiraled into rage and desperation. Whether her attack was premeditated or a sudden act of madness, one thing was certain. If she couldn't have Leopold, she would make sure no one else would either. Camilla Rybicka's actions weren't just about heartbreak, they were about control, obsession, and revenge. Women who commit violent crimes of passion often feel abandoned, powerless, or deeply betrayed. Studies on similar cases suggest that when a woman resorts to extreme violence in a romantic relationship, it's often fueled by intense emotional dependence. Camilla likely saw Leopold as more than just a lover. He was her entire world. When she realized she was losing him, she may have felt like she was losing everything. Instead of walking away, she lashed out in the most brutal way possible, ensuring that if she couldn't have him, no one else could either. Psychologists also point to borderline personality traits in cases like this. Intense love that quickly turns into rage and destruction. People with these traits can experience overwhelming emotions, swinging between adoration and fury. Camilla may have convinced herself that Leopold had used her, that he had taken everything from her and was ready to throw her away. In her mind, she wasn't just hurting him, she was punishing him. Acid attacks, in particular, are about more than just causing pain. They are meant to ruin, disfigure, and permanently mark the victim. Camilla wanted Leopold to suffer not just physically but socially, to strip away his beauty, status, and privilege in the same way she felt he had stripped her dignity. After the attack, Leopold was left in agony, his life forever altered. The acid burned through his skin, causing horrific injuries. For 6 long months, he battled infections, excruciating pain, and the shock of his disfigurement. His royal family, desperate to keep the scandal under wraps, tried to shield him from public eye. His once glamorous life was reduced to a medical nightmare, and Leopold was no longer the charming, confident prince he was. His reputation, already marred by his reckless affairs, was now tarnished forever. The prince's suffering was physical, but there was also the emotional toll of knowing that someone he once loved had chosen to ruin him. As for Camilla, her fate was sealed in the aftermath of her violent act. She was arrested and charged with attempted murder, though the courts likely saw her actions as a mix of jealousy and emotional instability. Camilla didn't spend a long time in prison, however. This case is following another case I cover when one woman poisoned her family, which again was treated with leniency. In this case, Camilla, it seems, had the same fate. Some reports suggest that she was diagnosed with severe emotional disturbance or a form of mental illness which might have influenced her sentencing. After serving a short time, she seemingly disappeared from the public eye, her name fading into obscurity. Meanwhile, Leopold, despite surviving his injuries, never fully recovered. His life, his appearance, and his future were all permanently marked by Camilla's wrath. Now, when you step back and look at all, it's easy to see how deeply desperation and obsession can twist a person's mind. Camilla's story reminds us that love isn't always this pure, ideal thing we see in movies. For some people, love becomes this kind of control, an almost unhealthy need to possess someone, no matter the cost. When we're in love, we often get lost in it, and it's easy to forget that the boundaries of what's right and wrong are just one choice away. Camilla's emotions weren't just about heartache, they were about losing her sense of self and turning to rage when she felt abandoned. It's a tragic reminder that when love turns into obsession, it can quickly spiral out of control. But on the other hand, there's Leopold's side of the story. Here's a guy who lived a life of privilege, money, status, everything anyone could ask for. Yet he was still looking for something beyond the glitz and glamour of royal life. He dabbed in these reckless affairs, and while he may have felt a sense of freedom, it also came at a cost. Sometimes when we chase thrills, without thinking about the consequences, we end up paying for it in ways we cannot even imagine. Leopold's story is a tough reminder that while you might live a life of luxury, nothing is guaranteed. The people we love can either build us up or bring us down, sometimes in the most unexpected way. Thank you for staying with me. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Max is almost sleeping or just barely listening. But if you are still here, I hope you know I appreciate you very much. You are the ones who encourage me to continue. Please take care of yourself first and consider subscribing. Bye.